Hello everyone, Davening with the Haftorah of Parshat Shelach, dedicated to the loving memory of Lucy Maya and Rena D, to the safe return of all our soldiers home, and to the speedy return of all our hostages. So both in the Torah portion of Shelach and the Haftorah of Shelach, we see that the leader of the Jewish people sent spies into the land of Israel to see the land, to come back with a report. But while in the Parsha, 10 out of the 12 spies came out with a negative report, in the Haftorah, they came back with a positive report. And how can it be? After all, it's the same land, just 40 years apart, same people approximately, same walled cities, same armies, same climate. How can it be that they saw the same reality and yet came back with a different report? And I believe the answer is clear. Anyone that's ever traveled before knows that you can go on the same plane, you can sit next to a passenger in the same class, you can come off that flight, and two people come up to you and say, "How was your flight?" And one person will say, "Awful. My screen didn't work. Nothing worked on the plane." And the other person whose screen didn't work also will say, "I was 35,000 feet up in the air in this aluminum something called a plane, and we didn't crash. Man, I'm assuming everything worked for the pilot because we left on time and we got there on time, and I even got a hot meal, and I even got a drink, and I even slept a little. And yes, my screen didn't work, but in the scheme of things, everything else did work." It really depends on your perspective. It really depends on what you're deciding to put the emphasis on. And I believe that this week in Israel, whoever's been following the news knows that there's been one story that dominated it, and that is drafting a certain segment of the Orthodox population into the military. When you talk about the military in Israel, it's exactly like the story I just told you about the plane. It depends what you pinpoint. Are you going to pinpoint the few soldiers that unfortunately went into the army religious and came out not religious? Or are you going to speak about the soldiers that went in religious, came out religious, and were able, on the one hand, to hold a gun, and in their other hand, hold a Gemara? Are you going to talk about an army that, yes, makes mistakes sometimes, and yes, even in the realm of trying to combine military with Judaism? Or are you going to talk about an army, the only one in the world, that keeps Shabbos, has an Eruv on every base, has kosher food in their kitchens and only kosher food, and has laws and regulations that if you break them, such as cooking on Shabbos or mixing meat and milk, you're going to be court-martialed? It really depends on your perspective. So you can send spies into the land of Israel, the land doesn't change, but the same spies can come back with different reports based on perspective. And if that's true when it comes to the land of Israel, the army of Israel, it can definitely be true regarding the shuls of the Jewish people, of the Jewish Israel. After all, two people can go to shul on Shabbos, and they come home. One person can come home and pinpoint the one little sensational mistake that the Baal Korah made during laning. And the other person can come home at that same minyan and say, we started on time, we pretty much ended on time, and it was a pleasant davening, and yes, the Baal Korah made a mistake. But in the scheme of things, it was actually a very pleasant davening. I think that this parsha, together with the Haftorah, teaches us one thing. Look at things in the complete perspective. And when you look at it in the complete perspective, you're able to get a more balanced point of view. And when you get a more balanced point of view, then at the very least, you won't be sinning in a terrible sin called the sin of the spies that delays you for 40 years to get into Israel, 38 to be precise. And at most, you'll have a much more fulfilling and fun life. Wishing everyone a Shabbat Shalom.